5 valleys in the mountains make this record in the 1200th year since we came out of Jerusalem. And I have 3 sons gone to the south country to live by hunting antelope and deer. Another interesting record on stone was the Mahantai panel, located in the same area. This may very well be all that's left of the panel. The Mahantai panel was translated in 1856 as, I, Mahantai, the second king of the Lamanites, in 5 valleys in the mountains, make this record in the 1200th year since we came out of Jerusalem. And I have 3 sons gone to the south country to live by hunting antelope and deer. Professor James Harris verifies this interpretation as a mixture of Egyptian and Utah Fremont. Along with that, Brigham Young Jerusalem, and I have stood at a corner of the Manti Temple lot. Here is the spot where the prophet Moroni stood and dedicated this piece of land for a temple site, and that is the reason why the location is made here. We can't move it from this spot. And here we have some interesting anomalies. The old stone quarry of Manti Canyon had all the signs of having been used anciently for extensive building projects. While working at the quarry, William Potter turned over a large stone that had been half buried in the earth to discover that the underside had been sculpted with several figures of heads resembling those found on ancient Greek temples. Orson Pratt believed that one of the figures was a representation of Zeus, and that the 2 main sculptures were in every way identical to those found on the cornices and columns of ancient Greek temples, such as the Great Temple of Athena at the Acropolis. Sophus E. Jensen saw ancient inscriptions at the stone quarry in Manti Canyon that were identical to the inscriptions on Temple Hill. An early settler and temple worker, Pete Nielsen, claimed that a foundation stone had been excavated from a cavern beneath the temple and contained inscriptions which looked to him to be Greek letters. He said that it could still be seen by accessing the temple basement. Adelia Cox Sidwell reminisces, as kids, can somebody get the door? As kids, we used to play on the south side of Temple Hill, up near the top where the big rock protruded with the strange old writing on it. Isaac Morley climbed the south slope to examine the large stones worked by human hands, thought to be the remains of the foundation of an ancient temple that once stood on top of that sacred mound. He made copies of the several stone inscriptions, compared them to the books, and found 17 likenesses, 14 unidentified, and 7 others unintelligible. Now, I hiked all along the crest of the hill from the south slope, but there doesn't seem to be any inscriptions left. Early history of Manti tells us, Chief Walkera of the San Pete Utes recounted that the old ones had built a stone altar with strange carvings on its base at the crest of the sacred hill where the Manti Temple now resides. It was disassembled by the Spaniards in search of gold and riches. Early settlers could still see the remains. When Brother Gifford accidentally split open one of the stones, he found it to be hollow and said it appeared to be an ancient repository of records. When Brother Gifford accidentally split open one of the stones, he found it to be hollow and said it appeared to be an ancient repository of records. It seems that many cultures have contributed to the historic hollow and said it appeared to be an ancient repository of records.
An ancient repository of records. Look at me. We keep records. We've always kept records as people, humans, mankind, all of us. We've kept records. This is all we need. These records prove us right. These are the records
It seems that many cultures have contributed to the historical remains of the Sanpete Valley. Earl John Brewer spent many long hours in his cave, digging, studying, and pondering. Hoping to identify the age of the items that he was uncovering, he got a book on archaeology and carefully filled bottles of soil samples, took notes about what he was collecting. He could tell that the Indians had been in the cave, but as he dug down, he uncovered the remains of other cultures that he believed had used the cave over a span of several thousand years. He sincerely wanted to understand the meaning of what he found. He was very prayerful and humbly studied what Joseph Smith taught about how to receive answers to prayers. He sent a letter to church authorities for help and waited a long time for an answer. Meanwhile, he attended church and read the Book of Mormon several times, hoping to find the answers there. Through all of his study, he came to the conclusion that the oldest people who used the cave must have been the Jaredites. Now, who are the Jaredites?
Here we go again. The Jaredites. Jaredites keep popping up. Okay? So what are we wrong about? Alright, we're gonna get further into this before I start talking more crap, because you guys gotta understand.
Who were the Jaredites? We learned from the Book of Ether and the Book of Mormon that the Jaredites were the descendants of Jared and his brother, who lived from approximately 2500 BC to 600 BC. They were originally from Mesopotamia when the Lord confounded the languages at the Tower of Babel. They fled across the ocean on unique barges and established an ancient civilization in the Americas. They were a large and mighty people, accustomed to traveling vast distances and were fierce in battle. They prospered nearly 2,000 years before the nation was destroyed in a civil war. Hugh Nibley suggests that Jaredites are essentially similar to the Mongols in culture. It's interesting to know and mighty people, accustomed to traveling vast distances and were fierce in battle. They prospered nearly 2,000 years before the nation was destroyed in a civil war. Hugh Nibley suggests that Jaredites are essentially similar to the Mongols in culture. Was destroyed in a civil war. Hugh Nibley suggests that Jaredites are essentially similar to the Mongols in culture. Essentially similar to the Mongols in culture. Essentially similar to the Mongols in culture. It's interesting to note that Brigham Young, while on a visit to the saints in central Utah, said some of the Gadianton robbers were in the vicinity of Sanpete looking for treasures of those Jaredites.
It's most likely, through my research, that they're related. They come from Cham, out of Africa.
Who came from the tower. Now, June 17th, 1957, 2 years after he first visited the cave, John writes in his journal, "I seem to feel sometimes that I'm being watched, but when I check and see, I see no one. But the feeling will not leave. Even when I'm in the cave, I get it real strong, but when I go outside, it leaves me." Quoting from J. Golden Barton, it goes on. Sometime later, he went on.
He felt the power of our ancestors. When in Hawaii, when you go to sacred spots here in Hawaii where priests used to do priestly orders, your whole body feels like it's electric running through it. Your hair is standing and your skin is chicken skin. It's just the power our sacred places hold.
To the cave to think, and he felt the presence of another person in the room who held a light. His first impression was that he had been followed. He was then seized upon a force of power that threw his body to the ground and left him looking at his body from above. While in this state, the person introduced himself as Ether, an ancient spirit, and explained that Brewer was not to seek financial gain from the things in the chamber, but to protect the discovery. He was told that the LDS Church authorities should be informed and made aware of the discovery, but were not to be involved at this time. Brewer said that he was unworthy to be a custodian because he smoked and drank a little.
Okay, you understand. The LDS. The LDS is one of the biggest roles in the artifact finding. They found another depository in Michigan, and the owners of it, the owners of the LDS church, were old, but they loved these artifacts, and they gave an explicit order not to destroy them. So as the husband died, there was just the mother left, and they were spreading the word that as soon as she dies, we are going to destroy these artifacts. Wake up.
And was not active in the church, but Ether told him he had other attributes and was to be very careful in protecting the contents of the cave. So work at the cave progressed. While digging out the upper chamber where the arrowheads and other artifacts were, Brewer came upon an opening with stairs leading down into a tomb. Now this is where the story gets really interesting. There were numerous records, artifacts, and tools inside. He found stone forms for shaping plates, and a hammer, and 50 little chisel-type tools used to inscribe the records.
So,
tools inside.
If you don't understand it, she's saying she found the newspaper or the printing warehouse. This is where they printed everything. All the different chisels so they could chisel in whatever story.
He found stone forms for shaping plates, and a hammer, and 50 little chisel-type tools used to inscribe the records. It was clear that this had been used extensively as a workroom and even had a furnace at one end. John Brewer made a sketch of the cave here on the right with two different views. The upper one is like a bird's eye view, you can see down, and then the bottom one is more of a horizontal, so you can see into the cave.
Look,
there's some.
That's why I said his journal is key. Oh shit, my bad. Caskets, box with Spanish armor and other artifacts. Edomites. Trap. There's a trap right here. 5th step. Hold deep. Unknown. Box contain armor. Look at that.
Explored area on that top one on the left. Kind of T-shape. We'll mention that again. As far as we know, he never dug that part out. On the left here, his granddaughter, Trisla Brewer, did some artwork, and that really gives you a feel for the tomb, I think. So,
wow, look at this. Look how it looks like a regular room.
Taking a closer look at this cave, each item on the next slide is going to be numbered in red. Number 1 is the unexplored area. Number 2 is the bench containing artifacts. Number 3 is a wall of stone boxes.
Oh my gosh, wall of stone boxes, like the one they found with Moses' drawing on top. With the same mushroom hair like I have. Same full beard. Yet we did not exist. Yet you cannot tell me my history past 300 AD. Yet, you know, that's inflated. What you can tell me, most likely.
He didn't notice this at first. It looked like a normal dirt wall. But at some point, water had been in the tomb and had washed some of the mud away, exposing some bark. When he took a closer look at this strange bark, he realized that the wall was made of stone boxes wrapped in juniper bark and pine pitch, and then smeared with mud. Number 4 is a new 30-foot entry into the tomb, which
preserved these woods, wrapped it in juniper bark and mud in order to preserve them, because they know They know we was gonna get food. They know we were gonna be perverted. They wanted to keep intact history.
May have been the old furnace chimney. Worried that someone else would find the tomb, he made a new access which he concealed with a large flat rock and brush, and then closed the entrance with dynamite. Number 5, the stairs leading from the upper chamber down to the tomb. Number 6, bottomless pit and natural death trap. This was probably covered with sticks and dirt of some sort at one time so that it would not be visible. Number 7, safe passage around that last step. For those who didn't know about the tomb, this would be a safe way in and out, bypassing the death trap. But if you didn't know and you went straight down in, you would surely fall to your death. Number 8, that was a shelf containing dust, painted pottery, and a detailed copper bracelet in the design of a rattlesnake. It kind of coiled around the arm. He mentioned that it looked like something a woman would wear, and that possibly the eyes had jewels in them at one point. What? Number 9 is a wooden bench made and used by John Brewer while working on the maps. Remember I mentioned the work that he spent on the map? Sitting on top of it,
a bracelet in design of a snake.
This bench is a small box where he put his diary and records. Number 10 is a box with a metal cover containing John Brewer's prized artifacts. He put them here after recording where they were found. Number 11 is a box containing the Spanish armor he found on the west side of the valley. Number 12, he made another amazing discovery. 2 stone sarcophagi containing very large mummified bodies stacked one above the other. Unable.
Now you understand that a lot of the kings, when we came back to America, were giants from the Nephilim, and we had killed one of their. That's where you get David and the Goliath. You think that Goliath was one of these giants in these sarcophagi? Look at the writing. Look at the hook, the Semitic hook.
To take photos of the bodies, he drew sketches. I've been told it was actually his son, John, who was the artist.
Woman,
but I can't confirm that. I want you to see these mummies. We're going to talk about them in a few minutes, but you had to at least have a sneak peek.
Look at the mummy. They have straight hair. Straight hair.
Okay. These are photos of the general area where Brewer's Cave should be found. Lone Eagle, George Keller, and John Brewer were not the only ones to roam these hills and explore caverns. Maud Cox, an elderly woman whose family had owned high ground to the north of the temple and near the Keller farm. As a little girl, she had heard her family speak of the discovery of a cave or tomb that required a ladder to gain entrance. There was a long, narrow passage that led to a chamber where artifacts and a burial site were located. She did not know the location of the chamber, but George Keller had told her of a certain mark located near the cave of the Great Spirit. Could Brewer's Cave be the same place that her family had discovered? Lucian Bown tells a similar story. As young boys, Lucian and his friends dared each other to go into a small cave they had discovered in the hills. There was a drop-off inside, and they tossed rocks in to see how deep it would go. Well, as kids, they couldn't hear the rocks land, so they figured it went all the way to China. One of the boys, with long arms, reached into the hole and came out with part of a step from an old stick ladder that had been tied together with a chunk of leather. Years later, one of the boys decided to dig a mine shaft-type tunnel 25 feet below the opening to see if he could find the bottom. He did. He realized that they had not heard the rocks falling in the hole because the bottom was covered in several inches of what he called flour dust. He found a large rock wall and tunneled around it, only to realize it was actually a stone coffin. He said that he used a tire iron to pry the lid up and saw the remains of a mummy. Again, we wonder, could they have happened upon what later became known as Brewer Cave? Finally, the long-awaited meeting with church representatives. March 1st, 1974, Dr. Paul Chessman of the Department of Religion at BYU, his wife Millie, Mark E. Peterson of the Quorum of the 12, J. Golden Barton and Wayne Hamby met with John Brewer and his son at the home of Bishop Merlin Nielsen to discuss the Brewer Cave. Brewer had waited many years and was eager to tell them the story of the cave, the stone boxes, the records, and the giant mummified remains. The group listened intently. They were excited and very impressed, especially when he reached into his briefcase and brought out about 60 plates of various sizes, shapes, and metallurgical composition. All of the plates presented were inscribed with characters in an unknown writing. Brewer showed them these 7 gold plates, which he had placed in a picture frame under glass for their protection. And here are a couple of lead plates, one in the shape of a man's head. A cast and replica was made of this one. You'll notice the actual size fits right into his hand. And then there's an interesting spiral inscription
that's a conker. Woohoo.
On the one on the right. Lucian Bound handled these plates when he was asked to photograph them, and he commented that the lead plates were so soft they would mold right to your hand. Now, I'm not sure the composition of all of these different ones, but Lucian also mentioned that some of the brass plates were so sharp that they would cut your fingers, and so brittle that if you dropped them, he thought they would shatter like glass. Now, those men at the meeting were all united in the opinion that Brewer was most likely telling the truth. A little reluctantly, Brewer agreed to take Dr. Paul Chessman to the tomb as soon as the snow melted. Then, an archaeological team from BYU would follow up with the necessary evaluation, but sadly, this never happened. Chessman was a large man, and Brewer would have to widen the narrow access tunnel to get him in. He was working on that, even putting carpet in the bottom because he didn't feel that Chessman should have to scoot along in the dirt. But then the tunnel ceiling caved in. Many personal problems further delayed the plan. Controversy began to swirl. He had shown some of the artifacts to priesthood quorums, school children, friends, and neighbors. The stories and artifacts were attracting ill-intentioned people. Items were being stolen from him. He soon began to fear for his life and the lives of his family. He became the subject of critical newspaper articles. Dr. Jesse Jennings and Dr. Raymond Feeney were very critical of him and suggested he was a fraud. Understandably, Brewer was embarrassed and felt betrayed. BYU, University of Utah, and Dr. Paul Chessman had all obtained artifacts from Brewer. The artifacts pictured on the left here are described in the middle a little bit, with the results on the right. Now, I'm not going to read this, I'm just going to paraphrase.